Okay, corresponding parts of congruent figures are congruent. We use CPCTC as an abbreviation for that, which means that matching sides are congruent. So BC and YX are matching sides, they're congruent. AD is congruent to WZ, AB is congruent to XW, and CD is congruent to YZ. Matching angles are also congruent. B goes with X, C goes with Y, A goes with W, and Z goes with D. Sometimes you have to redraw the figures so they're in matching position to match the congruent parts up. For this example, HIJK is congruent to LMNO. That means that all the corresponding parts are congruent. H goes with L, I with M, J with N, K with O. Segment HI goes with LM. Segment IJ goes with MN. Segment JK goes with NO. Segment HK goes with LO. So fill those in, make sure you use the correct notation. And also those should be angles. So the congruence order matters. The congruent statement itself gives you the parts that match up. When you write a congruent statement, you have to be sure that the letters also match up in the correct order. So if triangles are congruent or shapes are congruent, then corresponding angles and corresponding sides must also be congruent. And if you can show that corresponding angles and sides are congruent, then it must be that those shapes, triangles, parallelograms, or whatever, must be congruent. So this works both ways. If the parts are congruent, the things are congruent. If the things are congruent, then the parts are congruent. CPCTC. Corresponding parts are congruent, triangles are congruent. For this one, I want to find the value of x. A lot of times it's useful to redraw the triangles so they're in the same matching position so we can match the corresponding parts up. So angle D goes with angle A, angle F goes with angle B, and angle E goes with angle C. And that means that angle B is also, or angle F is also going to be 53 degrees, since that corresponds to angle B. And then looking at trying to figure out the sides, BA matches with FD, but we need to find the length of FD, so we need to use the Pythagorean theorem. 6 squared plus x squared equals 100. Take away 36 from both sides. We get x squared is equal to 64, which means that x is equal to 8. So to find the measure of angle F, we use the Pythagorean theorem. We find out that side FD must be 8, and since that matches side BA, we could say 2x minus 2 must be equal to 8, which gives us 2x's is equal to 10, and x must be 5. So here we're showing that by the Pythagorean theorem, we get FD is equal to 8, and when we solve, we get x is equal to 5. Now, if x is equal to 5, 2 times 5 take away 2 gives us 8. And we know what the side length is. Finding corresponding triangles. If all corresponding parts are congruent, then we can say the triangles are congruent, so we have to match up the corresponding parts based on how they're labeled. So A goes with E, B goes with D, and the vertical angles at C are congruent to each other, so C goes with C. And when we name the congruent statement, we have to do corresponding part order. So notice that all the corresponding sides are congruent. So if we're going to start with angle ABC, triangle ABC, we have to use EDC. Notice that A goes with E, B goes with D, and C goes with C. The third angles theorem says that if two angles are congruent in a triangle between two congruent triangles, then the third angles must also be congruent. That's pretty easy to show, because take 180 away from the sum of both of the equal ones, leaves you with the equal ones left over. Again, it's helpful to redraw the triangles in corresponding order. And we can see that if we match S with M and M with R, that P and T match. And since these triangles are congruent by third angles, angle P and angle T must be congruent. So we can say that 2x squared is equal to 4x squared minus 32. If we solve for x, take away 4x squared from both sides, we get negative 2x squared is equal to negative 32. Divide both sides by negative 2, we get x squared is equal to 16, which means that x is equal to 4. And to find the measure of angle P, then 2 times 4 squared is 2 times 16, which is 32.